There comes a point in this kind of relationship where you stop asking, "Why is she treating me like this?" and start asking, "Why do I feel so weak around her?" That question usually comes after a long period of confusion. You tried to be patient. You tried to explain yourself better. You tried to stay calm, stay loyal, stay understanding. And somehow, the more you gave, the more unstable everything became. You started feeling like your peace depended on her mood, her approval, her attention, or whether she was pulling you close or pushing you away. You may have looked strong on the outside, but inside you were drained, anxious, and always bracing for the next shift. If that has been your experience, you need to hear something clearly. Her power over you was not proof that you were weak. It was proof that you were caught in a psychological pattern designed to keep you off balance. You were not too sensitive. You were not failing to love her correctly, and you were not the sole cause of the chaos. What you were likely dealing with was a system of control built on emotional inconsistency, guilt, fear, and the constant pressure to earn stability that should have been given freely. That is why people often stay trapped for so long, not because they enjoy the pain, but because the relationship never feels completely bad. It moves back and forth. One moment you feel chosen, wanted, deeply connected. The next moment, you feel dismissed, blamed, ignored, or replaced. That swing is what creates attachment. Your nervous system starts chasing relief instead of asking whether the relationship is healthy. You stop looking at what is true and start focusing on how to get back to the good version of her. And that is exactly where her power lives. A narcissistic woman does not keep power over you simply because she is confident, attractive, or emotionally intense. Her power comes from your emotional dependence on the version of reality she controls. If she can define what happened, if she can decide when you matter, if she can make you doubt your own instincts, then she stays in the position of authority. Not because she is truly stronger than you, but because your emotional center has slowly been moved outside of yourself. This is why one of the first things that makes her lose power is when you stop trying to win clarity from her. As long as you need her to finally admit what she did, explain why she changed, or validate the hurt she caused, you are still emotionally tied to her version of events. You are still handing her the role of judge, and people with narcissistic traits often protect that role at all costs. They may deny obvious things, twist conversations, act confused when you confront them, or suddenly become the victim when you finally speak honestly. That behavior is not random. It protects control. If you remain confused, you remain engaged. If you remain engaged, she still has access to your energy. A lot of people do not realize how much of this power is built on hope. Not love in its healthy form, but hope in the painful form. Hope that if you explain it one more time, she will understand. Hope that if you are steady enough, she will soften. Hope that if you prove your loyalty, she will stop punishing you. Hope that the warm, loving, emotionally available version of her will return and stay. But hope can become a trap when it keeps you bonded to patterns that are hurting you. A narcissistic dynamic often survives because the other person is always waiting for the relationship to become what it promised to be in the beginning. So what actually makes her lose her power over you? The answer is not aggression. It is not revenge. It is not becoming cold, cruel, or emotionally numb. It is much simpler than that, but also harder. She loses power when your need for her emotional approval begins to die. She loses power when your mind becomes clear enough to see the pattern without arguing with it. She loses power when you stop reacting from pain and start responding from self-respect. One of the biggest shifts happens when you understand the role fear has been playing. Many people think they are attached because they love deeply. Sometimes that is true. But in toxic dynamics, attachment is often strengthened by fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of being replaced, fear of misunderstanding what happened, fear that you were the problem after all, fear that if you let go, you will never get closure, fear that she will move on easily while you are left carrying the damage. That fear keeps you mentally tied to her even when you know the relationship is harming you. And narcissistic control feeds on fear because fear makes you easy to manage. When you fear losing her, you tolerate what you should question. When you fear conflict, you silence yourself. When you fear being alone, you accept crumbs and call it connection. When you fear that nobody else will understand you, you stay bonded to the very person creating the pain. This is why healing is not just about leaving physically. It is about seeing what fear has been making you accept emotionally. Another way she holds power is through roles. In these relationships, you are often pushed into a role without realizing it. You become the stabilizer, the rescuer, the apologizer, the one who keeps the peace, the one who absorbs blame, the one who explains things gently so she does not explode or shut down. Over time, that role becomes your identity in the relationship. You stop asking what you need and start measuring yourself by how well you can manage her reactions. The problem is that no matter how much emotional labor you do, the standard keeps moving. What was enough yesterday is not enough today. What was praised last week is criticized this week. You are always adjusting, but never arriving. That constant adjustment is exhausting because it teaches your body to live in anticipation. You become hyper-aware. You read tone, silence, facial expression, texting patterns, and distance like warning signs. You become a student of her mood because your peace seems to depend on it. But a healthy relationship does not require that level of surveillance. Real love does not train you to abandon yourself in order to stay connected. This is why another thing that makes her lose power is when you stop performing your role. Not in a dramatic way, not with a speech, but quietly. You stop over-explaining. You stop rushing to repair what you did not break. You stop volunteering emotional labor she has come to expect from you. You stop chasing after withdrawal, sulking, mixed signals, and silent punishment. And when you do that, something important happens. The dynamic gets exposed. Because if the connection only works when you carry all the emotional weight, then it was never balanced to begin with. She may not respond well to that shift. In fact, that is often when manipulation becomes more obvious. When control starts slipping, people with strong narcissistic traits may escalate. They may become sweeter for a moment. They may suddenly become affectionate, attentive, apologetic, or vulnerable. Or they may become harsher, more dismissive, more accusing, more provocative. Both responses serve the same purpose. They are attempts to re-establish emotional control. If kindness brings you back, she uses kindness. If guilt brings you back, she uses guilt. If fear brings you back, she uses fear. This is where many people get confused again. They think, maybe she really is changing, or maybe I'm being too hard on her. But the real question is not whether her mood changed for a day. The real question is whether the pattern changed. Is there accountability without defensiveness? Is there consistency without punishment? Is there respect for your boundaries without mockery, guilt, or retaliation? Is there room for your reality, or only hers? These are the questions that bring clarity, because clarity is dangerous to control. Once you stop focusing on isolated moments and start seeing the full pattern, manipulation weakens. A person can only keep power over you for as long as they can keep you emotionally fragmented. One good moment erases 5 painful ones. One affectionate message makes you doubt everything you saw. One apology makes you feel guilty for protecting yourself. But when your mind becomes more organized, when you start trusting what the pattern has shown you over time, the spell begins to break. Another major shift happens when you stop trying to be understood by someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. This is painful because most healthy people believe that if they just communicate clearly enough, truth will matter. But in narcissistic dynamics, truth is often filtered through self-protection. If admitting your pain would require her to face shame, fault, or vulnerability she does not want to face, then your words may be minimized, twisted, or used against you. That is why these conversations can leave you feeling even more lost. You walk in hoping for resolution and leave feeling accused, guilty, or emotionally disoriented. At some point, you have to accept that not everyone who hears you is trying to understand you. Some people are listening for control, not connection. And once you understand that, you stop wasting precious energy trying to reach someone who is invested in keeping you confused. That does not mean you become bitter. It means you become accurate. Accuracy is powerful. It is powerful when you say, "This is not love. This is a cycle." It is powerful when you say, "I am not overly emotional. I am reacting to instability." It is powerful when you say, "I have been trained to abandon myself here, and that is why this feels so hard to leave." These truths may sound simple, but they are the beginning of emotional freedom. Because once you name the reality clearly, you stop blaming yourself for struggling inside it. Then comes the part many people avoid, but it changes everything. You begin grieving not just the relationship, but the fantasy, the future you were trying to build, the version of her you kept hoping would return, the fairness you wanted, the apology you deserved, the emotional safety that never fully arrived. This grief matters, because as long as you are still secretly bargaining with the fantasy, some part of you remains available to be pulled back in. But when you finally grieve what was not real, your attachment starts shifting from longing to truth. This is also where boundaries become real. A boundary is not a threat. It is not a performance. It is not a tool to make someone behave. A boundary is the point where your self-respect becomes visible in your actions. It says, "I will not keep participating in what harms me." And that may mean less contact. It may mean no contact. It may mean refusing circular conversations. It may mean not defending yourself against every false accusation. It may mean letting her think what she wants while you protect your peace. That last part is difficult for many people, because they want so badly to be seen correctly. But freedom often begins when you stop needing to control how someone who mistreated you chooses to describe you. Calm detachment is one of the strongest things you can develop. Not coldness, not denial. Calm detachment means you stop feeding the cycle with your panic, your pleading, your constant need to explain. You observe more. You react less. You become less available to emotional bait. And this matters because narcissistic dynamics often rely on reaction. If she can still provoke you into defending, chasing, rescuing, or proving, then some part of the bond is still active. But when your nervous system becomes steadier, when you no longer take the bait in the same way, the control starts to collapse. That does not mean it feels easy. Sometimes losing the bond feels like withdrawal, because in many ways it is. You are breaking an emotional addiction to unpredictability, intensity, and false repair. There may be days when you miss her, doubt yourself, or feel pulled to reopen the door. That does not mean you made the wrong choice. It means your body is adjusting to the absence of a cycle it learned to survive. Healing can feel unfamiliar at first because chaos was what became familiar. This is why self-respect has to become more than an idea. It has to become a daily practice. You remind yourself of what happened without softening it into something smaller just because you feel lonely. You stop romanticizing the moments of closeness while ignoring the damage around them. You listen to your exhaustion. You listen to the version of you that felt erased, anxious, and small. You stop gaslighting yourself just because she was charming, wounded, beautiful, or convincing. None of those qualities cancel out harm. A narcissistic woman loses her power over you when you no longer confuse being chosen with being loved. She loses power when you stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. She loses power when you understand that someone can desire your attention and still not respect your inner world. She loses power when you stop trying to heal the relationship at the cost of healing yourself. And maybe most importantly, she loses power when you rebuild trust with your own mind. That means you stop dismissing your discomfort. You stop arguing with your own patterns of pain. You stop needing outside permission to call something unhealthy. The more you trust your perception, the harder it becomes for anyone to rewrite your reality. That is a quiet form of strength, but it changes your whole life. You may still carry sadness. You may still think about what happened. You may still feel the ache of how much you gave and how little safety you received in return. But that ache does not mean she still owns you. Pain and attachment are not the same thing. You can grieve and still be free. You can remember and still move forward. You can feel deeply without returning to what broke you. Real healing starts when your energy comes back to you. When your mornings feel lighter because you are no longer waking up in emotional defense mode. When your thoughts become less about decoding her and more about understanding yourself. When peace stops feeling boring and starts feeling sacred. When you no longer need dramatic closure because the truth itself has become enough. That is what moving on actually looks like. Not pretending it did not affect you, not becoming hardened, not proving that you never cared. It looks like becoming so clear that the cycle can no longer sell itself to you. It looks like becoming so rooted in your own worth that manipulation has nothing strong enough to hook into. It looks like knowing that love should not cost you your sanity, your dignity, or your ability to trust yourself. If you are in that process right now, be patient with yourself. You are not just getting over a person. You are untangling a pattern. You are learning how to separate love from control, guilt from responsibility, and longing from truth. That takes time. But every moment of clarity matters. Every time you pause instead of react, every time you choose your peace over another exhausting cycle, every time you believe your own experience a little more, her power weakens. And one day, you will notice something that once felt impossible. You will think about her without shrinking. You will remember the relationship without questioning your reality. You will feel compassion for what you went through without feeling called back into it. And in that moment, you will understand something important. Her power did not disappear because she changed. It disappeared because you did. You stopped handing your identity to someone who was using your love against you. You stopped begging for emotional safety from the person disrupting it. You stopped asking someone committed to control to teach you your worth. And when that happened, the center of your life returned to where it always should have been. With you. That is where peace begins. That is where strength returns. And that is how you move forward, not with bitterness, but with clarity, self-respect, and a kind of calm that no one can take from you again.